which often is, rather than there if they're looking this way. Everybody stands here.
Tom, let me just get my briefcase.
Yeah.
Release overnight, that was just kind of restating a lot of the positions.
Yeah,
Y'all
yeah.
are going to talk more about what you saw.
Well,
here.
I am at least. I'm trying to get them to.
Okay.
So
Thank you.
here is there's a statement of my ponderings of what we observed.
Okay.
And it goes into more detail about, it's on the back what I wrote this in the dark of the morning without editing. And it's really left an impression on me going into that massive thing that they're rejiggering to fit into the plutonium pit plant. You know, it did, you know, as I say in there, we can confirm that we didn't see any classified equipment or really any other equipment. And it's cavernous, as you know. And we did see where they're knocking holes in the wall with this high pressure jet and trying to configure things. I think they're going to put they've ordered 137 glove boxes and they're going to order more, but the supply chain is really problematic. They did give us some other facts that I think my colleagues will mention. We asked them some cost questions, and the DOE budget is in here, the figures. And we asked them about that performance evaluation where they've got problems. And they basically, I said, this looks like the MOX plant. And they're going, yeah, I know. They tried to shrug it off, and I mentioned it again, and I said, yeah, we're trying to straighten it out. We went onto the roof, and they showed us where various buildings are going to be in each direction. Work has not started on the external support buildings, like where they would store the waste. They are building a sand filter where all the air exhausted goes through it to trap particulates, but not aerosols. And it's like an acre in size or something. There was no other construction activity that I noticed. All the rip out, the walls are totally bare. They blasted a coating off the walls, and actually met the guy who installed it and removed it a couple months ago by chance. They're going to reapply something new. I don't know what it is.
Is it a big open area or a lot of compartmentalized rooms?
Oh, it's a lot of tiny little rooms. They've got numbers by them, and some of them have equipment stored in them. Others, they're knocking holes in the walls to try to connect the glove boxes, I guess, and they're going to have to carry some plutonium by carts because the design, it's got 498 rooms in it, I think.
Wow.
I mean, it's just massive. And there's not a thing left in it. They tore out all the dark work, all the wiring, all the pipes, and a lot of that stuff wasn't going to work for the MOX plant because things didn't meet, and they had them in the wrong places. And I mentioned the embeds. That's where they're going to weld like pipe hangers and stuff. They didn't tear those out. It's like metal plates like this big, where they can drill into that rather than the concrete. So there's some other facts that colleagues will talk about, because I know that's the main thing you want to hear about is the tour.
Yeah, what you saw, yeah.
Yeah, definitely. Well, we'll be talking about that.
Hey, I'm Sammy Crow.
Yeah, I'm Jake Cotton.
So thank you.
Excited to hear about it.
Let's go.
Don't forget to pass the mic to the next speaker, and if somebody asks a question, repeat the question.
Repeat the question. Okay, good morning, everyone. Sorry. Could you be in charge of the press packets? The South Carolina Daily Gazette just showed up. Good morning, Jessica. Here's the media packet. My statement is on the back that I'm going to read right now.
Thank you so much.
What else needs to be done?
If you see media come in, give them the media packet. Good morning, everyone. Thank you for attending. My name is Tom Clements, and I'm the director of an organization called Savannah River Site Watch here in Columbia. and we monitor issues out at the nuclear weapons facility near Aiken. There are 3 of my colleagues who are here today who were part of the lawsuit that produced the plutonium environmental impact statement or required it to be prepared, and they can introduce themselves now. Tommy, just, I'm not going to pass you the.
Okay. Hi, I'm Tanvi Cardole. I'm the Nuclear Policy Program Director at Tri-Valley Cares in Livermore. We're one of the plaintiff organizations for this lawsuit.
I'm Jay Coughlin with Nuclear Watch New Mexico, based in Santa Fe, and I follow Tom's lead here.
And there was one other person on the tour, Dylan Spalding, who's with the Union of Concerned Scientists. He's not one of the plaintiffs, but he was our technical advisor on the tour. I want to point out to the media, and there might be a few of these left over if anybody wants them. They're in the media packet, because some people don't know where the Savannah River Site is, or that it's 300 square miles in size. I included these maps. The second thing in here, possibly on the back, is just the agenda for the tour yesterday, just to show you that they had prepared to meet us. We won via a lawsuit the programmatic environmental impact statement on the impacts of producing the plutonium bomb cores. I included the first page of the summary document, which was posted online on April 10th. There are 2 more volumes. The URL is on here. I've also got the DOE budget justification that was released at the end of March for the plutonium pit project, with pit production at Los Alamos in New Mexico and here at Savannah River Site. And it's absolutely stunning when you see that the funding for the SRS pit project has gone up from the request from $1.2 billion this current fiscal year to a request of $2.25 billion next year. And I've got the estimated cost by the Department of Energy, $25 billion, just to retrofit this plant and build some outbuildings. And Jay will address that more. There was a performance evaluation of how the contractor performed last fiscal year. I've included some key things, extractions from it, including that the contractor underperformed in carrying out the project in the last fiscal year. I've included a news release on when the settlement agreement was agreed to with NNSA and us plaintiffs in the federal lawsuit here in South Carolina. Jay's going to talk about a memo from a Department of Energy official and the beautiful logos of all the groups that are working on this issue with us on a national level and here in South Carolina. And my statement should be on the back side of the packet. I'm going to read a statement about my observations from yesterday, and we'll save questions to the end. I know the governor might be having a news conference here at 10 o'clock. We might have to go outside for further discussion. I hope it remains quiet for now. Okay, I'm just going to read this and you can see it. I thought about this overnight, and some might have said we didn't see a lot in the pit plant because it's been stripped out from when it was the mixed oxide fuel facility. But there's a lot going on in there, or a lot planned to be going on. As part of the lawsuit in which we won the programmatic EIS, the court approved settlement agreement stipulated that we would have a sit-down meeting with NNA and be able to tour the pit plant building. We received the allowed meeting and tour by gracious but reluctant National Nuclear Security Administration officials and contractor host on April 21st. Informed and engaged citizens, the 4 of us who went on the tour, thus crossed into what I call the gold-plated realm of nuclear weapons production that few get a first-hand view of. And they don't want the citizenry seeing these things, in my opinion. Now, I included in the statement extracts from the settlement agreement about why we are legally allowed to go into the facility. I would add at the start of the discussion, the NNSA official said, we're allowed 1 per year. He said, well, I hope this is your only tour. meaning that they want to finish with this programmatic EIS and issued the so-called record of decision in early 2027. We were told that the second and third floors were off limits as openings were being cut through the thick concrete walls with a water jet, a high pressure jet that blasts right into the concrete. And they said that the air had silica in it and we didn't have required protective equipment, so we did not go into those floors. So we can't really say what's going on the second and third floor. They showed us the first floor and we went to the top of the building. We toured part of the first floor and could see the vast size of the building, which has 500 rooms in it. Can you imagine? And how complicated it will be to squeeze the pit production facility into a building designed for other use, and that was to make plutonium fuel, mixed oxide fuel. We could see where openings were cut in the thick concrete walls, which appeared to be about a foot thick, and some of them were 18 inches or more thick. We didn't measure them, but it's seismically qualified building, and therefore it has the thick walls. We could see where they had eliminated the concrete down to the rebar. The water jet will not cut that out, so they had to cut it out with other means. Yeah, we could see where the white wall covering, the whole building had been covered with an internal covering in order to wash down radioactive materials that might have lodged on. All of that was totally removed. The only place where the coating was left was on what are called metallic embeds, where they can weld and attach certain things to it rather than drilling into the concrete. We could see that all the MOX equipment, which was installed from when the program started in 2007 to 2017, all of it had been stripped out. HVAC equipment, ductwork, piping, any wall hangings, anything else was totally gone. And in the sit-down meeting, we asked them what had happened to it, and they basically said it was all scrap. The glove boxes were gone, and the NNSA person said 99% of those very expensive glove boxes were scrapped with nothing salvaged. And NNSA, the National Nuclear Security Administration of DOE, hasn't revealed how much financial loss there was from all of that equipment that got junked. And Congress hasn't investigated, something at least I've called for a long time. Now that facility is being morphed into the nuclear bomb factory, and I think they're going to have rough going with converting this complicated facility into the new pit plant. The size of the building, height of the ceilings, haphazard appearing nature of the rooms, location, the thickness of the walls, the vast space to be filled left me pondering the huge amount of equipment that's got to be squeezed into the building. I think one of my colleagues is going to mention how many glove boxes. They've ordered 137 of these things you reach into to handle the plutonium. This is going to be a tough job. I expect continuous delays, cost overruns, and technical challenges a la the MOX debacle. And we pointed out that the performance evaluation that I handed out to the media, that the performance of the contractor was basically poor in 2025. And they acknowledged, when I said it sounds like the MOX plant, they basically acknowledged that it was similar, and they hoped they could straighten out the problems. NNSA will sugarcoat the situation at every turn and take caution in what they say about the project. Workers and contractors will continue to fight for the money, and you can see how much there is. And that's where the main motivator is, unfortunately. But can wasting $30 billion on construction alone and all the nuclear waste associated with it be sugar-coated? I personally don't think so. This money is not for essential work at Savannah River Site, management of high-level nuclear waste, but it's basically to restart a nuclear arms race, in my opinion. From what I saw, I think we can attest that no classified equipment has been installed in the facility, which they're not allowed to do. But that only came because we pushed for this programmatic environmental impact statement. And they're only going to be able to install classified equipment once the draft becomes the final document and they issue a record of decision in early 2027. Now, the document looks at the production of 205 plutonium pits a year at Savannah River Site, 125 at Savannah River Site, and 80 at Los Alamos. Why are they looking at the production of over 200 plutonium pits per year? We don't know. And the only thing I can gather is they're related to restarting a nuclear arms race, or it's related to the spending for the project. We were taken to the roof, and we looked out in each direction, and they pointed out which buildings were going to be built, like to handle nuclear waste, or to handle electrical equipment, or to be an entranceway for people coming into the building. We could also see where they were building a massive sand filter, about an acre in size, where all the exhaust air would go through and be filtered out by the sand filter. They claimed that the 90% complete design would be finished in September of this year. And that means they're going to come up with a new cost estimate at that time. Right now the ceiling is $25 billion. And to conclude, all during the tour, I could only think, what is this project for that they're, in my opinion, wasting $30 billion or more on? What's the reason? They say it's for deterrence, but why are they planning to produce 205 plutonium spheres a year? This is not deterrence by anybody's definitions. The pits aren't needed for existing weapons. Rather, it's a number that could support rapid and dangerous rearmament with a vast number of nuclear weapons. On the tour of the nuclear bomb factory, I kept shaking my head to myself about what was going on. And I realized I was inside the heart of what could be a new nuclear arms race. And that just kept with me the whole time during the tour. And I kind of was thinking about Willy Wonka and the chocolate factory. Well, here we are, a massive facility. And because get kind of wonkish sometimes, I pictured myself dancing around inside there, and could in jest only conclude that building a South Carolina chocolate factory for the children of South Carolina who are in need would be a much better thing to do than build a nuclear bomb factory here in our state. Thank you.
Well, Willy Wonka and the chocolate factory is going to be a tough act to follow.
Drop the...
Listen, I'll just speak loud.
No,
Hopefully, y'all will. Okay, here we go. Okay. All right, y'all hear me okay? I'll just hold the damn thing. All right, everybody hear me okay? All right, again, I'm Jay Coughlin with Nuclear Watch New Mexico, based in Santa Fe. So, obviously we did this tour yesterday, kind of the future heart of the U.S. nuclear weapons complex. And I would sum it up by saying that the real story is what we didn't see. Basically, all we saw was this huge concrete shell of a building. And I got to remind you all that at least $6 billion was spent in the failed mixed oxide program. So at least $6 billion already spent on this empty, huge concrete shell of a building, with something like $5 billion spent since then. There's no equipment in there, and they got to bore all these holes through, 2 foot, 3 foot thick concrete reinforced walls at times. Now, I don't want to say they can't do it, but to me, it seems highly improbable that they'll even be able to produce pits by the middle 2030s. They got a long, long ways to go. There's already a long history of continuing delays, escalating costs. That's going to continue. That's the obvious prediction. Now, for a great soundbite, check this out. It looks like this pit production facility at the Savannah River Site will be the most expensive building ever in U.S. history. That's astonishing. Again, $5 billion have already been sunk into the failed mixed oxide program. DOE now says, or the National Nuclear Security Administration now says, the upper range of costs is $25 billion. That doesn't include the previous sunk costs of $5 billion. And the new budget request explicitly states they still don't have final costs. So we're looking at $30 billion plus. Look it up, do Gemini AI or whatever. You'll find, oddly enough, the next expensive building is the Vogtle power plant straight across the river, also coming in at around $30 billion. And after that, it's now the SoFi Stadium, something like that in California, that's $6 billion. By way of comparison, the new World Trade Center cost around $4.5 billion. So this new pit plant is going to cost $30 billion plus, and we still don't know the true costs, making it the most expensive building in U.S. history. Now, the irony, the speech behind this is none of this is needed. It's weird. It's ironic. It's not needed. No future pit production is to maintain the safety and reliability of the existing stockpile. And our existing stockpile has been full-scale tested over history at least 1,100 times. The new pit plant at SRS is strictly for new design nuclear weapons that can't be tested because of the international testing moratorium, and therefore could erode confidence in the existing stockpile, or conversely, these new pits could cause the U.S., could prompt the U.S. to resume testing, after which all proliferation hell would break loose. Putin has already explicitly said, if the U.S. tests, Russia's going to test. And you can bet that North Korea, China, France, UK, et cetera, will test. And we're off to the new nuclear arms race. So I want to repeat that bottom line. No future pit production is to maintain the safety and reliability of the existing stockpile. It is for new designs. Now, I see that Tom's getting nervous about the time I'm going to take, so I will wrap up. I'm alleging a cover-up in costs here, is that the GAO, Government Accountability Office, has repeatedly stated that the National Nuclear Security Administration has no credible cost estimates for the pit production program. There is the total aggressive plan under the NNSA. Here's another astonishing budget fact, now exceeds the entire cost of the original Manhattan Project. To me, this is astonishing, the so-called revitalization of the U.S. nuclear weapons complex, in which expanded pit production is the key operation. Here they are, they're going to make new pits, and it costs more than the Manhattan Project that designed and produced the first pits over, the 3-4 years of of World War II. So just to conclude, and again, I'm alleging a cover-up here with respect to keeping the true costs of this unneeded program from the American public. And central to this, first of all, again, NNSA has no credible cost estimates, but this program is so troubled that last August, the Deputy Secretary of DOE ordered a special assessment, that's in quotes, to analyze the problems in the pit production program. And he ordered that it be completed by mid-December. So it's already 3-4 months old. I have filed Freedom of Information Act requests for it. I know that Tommy's organization has. Senator Elizabeth Warren and Representative John Garamendi both have specifically demanded that DOE release that troubled special assessment, and it still has not seen daylight at this point in time. So just to conclude, we got an unneeded program, incredibly expensive, that's going to create the most expensive building in U.S. history, and the costs are being kept concealed from the American taxpayer. And with that, I conclude my remarks and go on to the next, as long as we don't drop the mic.
Thank you. Hi, my name is Dylan Spalding. I'm a senior scientist in the Global Security Program at the Union of Concerned Scientists. And I've been asked to provide some technical advice to the plaintiffs in the case for the programmatic environmental impact statement here for the Savannah River Site pit production plant. So I want to address a few different technical aspects. First being, the first being the technical necessity for the program at all. As Jay and Tom alluded to, plutonium pit production is not to sustain the stockpile that the United States has right now. You'll often hear the program to make new pits justified by saying that we need to replace aging plutonium components in the stockpile. But in fact, the pits in the current stockpile have an average age of about 40 years as of today. We believe that they have lifespans closer to a century, and in fact, even results from Lawrence Livermore have shown that plutonium appears to age gracefully, those are their words, at ages of 150 years even, using techniques that they can use to speed up the aging. So plutonium aging, that being said, does not appear to be a viable motivation for the program that's underway at Savannah River or at Los Alamos right now. As Jay mentioned, these pits are for new design nuclear weapons. This will be the first time that the United States is introducing new designs into the nuclear arsenal since the end of the Cold War. So this is really a paradigm shift in which the nuclear complex is turning from maintaining the weapons we have using science-based techniques that don't require nuclear testing to introducing, in fact, all new designs with potentially new capabilities and new delivery systems to go along with them. This comes along with human and environmental risk. The NNSA, the National Nuclear Security Administration, is proposing production at 2 sites, somewhere between 30 and 80 pits per year at Los Alamos in New Mexico, and somewhere between 50 and 125 pits per year here at the Savannah River Site, at the building you see here. We know from historical experience where pits were produced before and already from Los Alamos, where these activities are already getting underway, that this is a dangerous and hazardous process. Plutonium is radioactive, it's a carcinogenic material. It results in large amounts of waste, from low-level radioactive waste up to transuranic waste, which present human and environmental risks, not only to the workers who will be charged with carrying this out, but to communities around these facilities as well. Here in Savannah River, low-level waste that's produced as a byproduct of pit production will stay on site and be buried here in South Carolina, whereas the transuranic waste will have to be transported by road across all the southern states from South Carolina back to southern New Mexico to the waste isolation pilot plant. So the impacts of this project are not limited to South Carolina and New Mexico. There's transportation of relatively large quantities of both plutonium and radioactive waste across all the southern states in between. We mentioned that yesterday we were afforded a tour of the facility here in South Carolina. And from a technical perspective, I think I want to echo what the 2 previous speakers have said. It's clear that the NNSA faces a daunting challenge in bringing this facility online in the near future. They have a long, complex road to completion. This building was originally built as a mixed oxide fuel facility with more than $7 billion sunk into it before that program was canceled. And as has been mentioned, billions more have been spent on it, but all there was to show yesterday on the tour was basically an empty concrete shell of thick walls and rebar. Apart from the facility's existing seismic qualifications, it's not clear that this particular building offers any advantage over alternatives that could have and should have been considered by a programmatic environmental impact statement had that been conducted according to the requirements under the National Environmental Policy Act, which require that a programmatic environmental impact statement should come before federal actions are taken. In this case, this analysis was done more than 8 years after the decision was taken to use this facility for plutonium pit production. So it essentially amounts to a retroactive rubber stamping for actions that have already been taken without a true analysis of the impacts to South Carolina and to the people who would carry this work out. Finally, I mentioned the transportation. It's also an item that was not really considered in this impact statement, although it does affect many states beyond South Carolina and New Mexico. But I just want to reiterate that from a technical perspective, we believe there is, in fact, no technical motivation to replace pits in the current stockpile at this time. And new pits, there are also alternatives to producing new pits right now that don't detract from the safety, security, and reliability of the arsenal. These are indeed threatening to set off an arms race with other countries. This is more about setting the U.S. up for production capability than it has to do with maintenance of what we have. So with that, I'll turn it over to Tanvi.
Hi, I'm Tanvi from Tri-Valley Cares in Livermore, California, once again one of the plaintiff organizations. All these issues that my colleagues spoke about is why the public needs to be involved in this, just to voice their concerns, voice opposition to plutonium pit production at Savannah River Site, and across the nation as well, because this issue does not stop at South Carolina, does not stop at Savannah River Site. The entire country will be impacted. Other communities living close to facilities will be impacted. And like Dylan said, transportation is a big issue. So communities living close to highways across the country will be impacted because this material is going to be transported on highways. And these communities have not been aware of this. They're not warned, so it's really important for the entire nation to be involved in this process. And this lawsuit was brought under the National Environmental Policy Act, and it's court mandated, so the public does have that right to be involved through giving oral testimony and written comments as well. The draft programmatic environmental impact statement was released April 10th. So the comment period for the public is now open. There will be a public hearing in North Augusta on May 5th. So we really encourage the people of South Carolina to attend this public hearing on May 5th and voice their concerns, give oral testimony, and express their opposition to this project. And this is really important. This EIS is extremely crucial because the current administration is currently gutting the National Environmental Policy Act through an executive order that the president issued right after inauguration. So the president does want federal projects to go through without proper analyses, without public engagement. So he got the NEPA regulations. So now federal agencies essentially make up their own regulations to match this executive order. And in response, Department of Energy created new regulations that cancel draft environmental impact statements and also cancels public engagement. So this draft PEIS could essentially be the last time the public is able to adequately scrutinize a nuclear weapons project. And that's really scary that the DOE can now essentially go through with these projects without public engagement, without y'all being able to express your concerns and scrutinize these projects, which is why we really encourage the people to be involved in this EIS and give oral testimony at this public hearing once again on May 5th. And also, this public hearing will also be virtual for people who aren't able to drive to North Augusta. You're able to tune in and make comments. And then also we encourage written comments as well to be emailed, and the deadline for that is July 16th. So the public has 90 days to comment on this.